Welcome back to the IAM CX podcast. I am your host, Roger Nicholas, Director of IAM CX Customer Experience. And we have a very special guest today. I know she's going to charm the hell out of you, okay? Just trust me on this. All right, you're going to want to hear this voice for the rest of your learning lives. Trust me. Today's episode, we're going to cover an often ignored segment of customer experience, and that is the employee and the employee experience. And we've titled it The Early Employee Experience Effect, Driving Business Success from Within. Now, just to give some context, employee experience has become a critical focus in modern HR strategies as it directly impacts employee satisfaction, productivity, and retention. And that's why it's critical to customer experience as well. Today's guest is going to help us really dive into one of the first phases of employee experience, the early phase. All right. We're going to talk a lot about attraction and recruitment. Okay. So our special guest today is Kerry Sudale. She's a passionate advocate for inclusive hiring and recognized leader in recruiting for customer experience and contact center leadership roles. As the founder of Sudale Search, Kerry champions a people-first approach, believing that the employee experience journey begins long before a new hire steps through the door. It starts at the very first point of contact. With a career rooted in creating equitable hiring processes and driving flexible working cultures, Kerry has partnered with businesses to help elevate their talent acquisition strategies, focusing on output and results over mere face time. A trailblazer for diversity, equity, and inclusion in recruitment, Kerry is particularly proud of Sudale Search's impressive track record. And ladies and gentlemen, hear this, because this is impressive regardless of whose track record it is. 80% of Sudale Search's hires come from underrepresented groups, and they maintain a 100% retention rate. The dramatic pause is so that it marinates a little bit, because that's significant. Most search companies don't have that boast. Kerry brings a fresh perspective to the conversation on employee experience, grounded in her belief that businesses thrive when they attract, retain, and nurture talent through meaningful and authentic engagement. She's also a flexible working champion and proud mom of two, striving to make the workplace better for everyone, one hire at a time. Please give a wonderful, warm IMCX welcome to Kerry Sudale. This is how we give love on the IMCX podcast.
Oh, thank you, Roger. I hope I live up to that lovely introduction there. No pressure.
No pressure at all. You can handle it. You've got broad shoulders. So let's dive right in, Kerry, because we want to keep these people here no longer than about 42, 43 minutes. So for our audience, help our audience understand what is employee experience and how does it differ from employee engagement? And then maybe you can tell us, when does employee experience journey begin?
So for me, employee engagement is exactly what it says on the tin, engaging with your employees. Hey, we're going to send out this message on this particular day, a message out here. We're going to have this one-to-one. We're going to have this meeting, whatever it is in terms of those engagement and those key meetings, agendas in the calendar, emails.
Right.
Employee experience for me is how do your employees feel about that? So I speak to a lot of people in the UK that, we're not really invested too much in our employee experience, or we're not too concerned about our employee experience. But the people that are concerned about your employee experience are your employees, because they're experiencing it, whether you're doing it or not.
Right.
So there's some really simple ways to make that experience great. And from our research in the market, the key part of where your employee experience begins is exactly your first interaction with a business. So from the hiring phase, it's you stick out an advert, you work with a headhunter who approaches people for you. You, as the hiring manager or internal talent team, approach somebody. straight away, that individual is experiencing what it's like to be an employee with you. And
Right.
so that engagement piece up front and adding the two together to make the experiences good is when you first reach out to somebody, because I think everybody's had it, right? When a recruiter has reached out to them or an employer has reached out to them, they have an interesting conversation, then nothing.
Right.
So it's really important to lay out your stall from the outset. What am I doing here? When is the next time I'm going to reach out to you? Because that sets a precedent that we are an organization that engages well and we care about you as an individual and your
Right.
experience with us.
Right. No, no, I like the way you described this because it's very comparable to how we look at customer experience. The genesis of everything is that first moment that customer starts having a problem and decides that they want to include you in their selection of problem-solving options. That's when the journey begins. It begins for them way earlier than we acknowledge it in business. So I like the fact that you've isolated where things really start from. And you've also underscored the fact that many companies, unfortunately, ignore this. They don't treat it with intention. So then why should organizations prioritize employee experience, Kerry, especially when their customer experience maturity is low?
So if you're prioritizing your employee experience, what you're saying here is, I care about you as an individual. It's not an expensive exercise in terms of what it's going to cost you to deliver good employee experiences, but it has a tangible benefit to doing it that does eke into revenue and profitability, which we'll probably talk about at another stage. But you need the people in order to increase your maturity in customer experience. And if you're doing employee experience badly, people are going to know about it, because I think it's something like 80 to 90% now of reviews on Glassdoor, for example. I don't know if you use it over in the States,
Yeah, we
but
do.
it's big. Yeah, perfect. Are from active job seekers. The active job seekers are looking at it. And you as an employee can leave somewhere and leave reviews, and you'll go and see a list of reviews, and you can see, hey, what's going on here, when all of a sudden a whole host of positive ones go on. And usually it means some sort of incentive in turn to go put on some nice reviews. And if that employee experience maturity is low, you're never going to be able to hire in the talent, because the best talent who are doing customer experience well, who will bring your maturity up to a high level, won't join an organization where they're not going to be treated well. Because I think there's a big understanding now between customer experience and employee experience, and really it's just the human experience. And if your customer experience maturity is low, at least if you're hiring good talent in your customer service function, for example, then who are really engaged with you as an organization, they will go out of their way to deliver exceptional service to your customers, or explain what's happening and give a good account of you and your brand. Whereas if they're not really enjoying it and you've not got a great customer experience, you'll probably hit the wall of when, oh yeah, there's nothing we can do about that. Yeah, internal system says no.
Yeah, and some of us have heard that before, unfortunately, too many times. I hear you. Well said. You know, the thing that's concerning is, you mentioned it earlier, this is more about the human experience, and businesses for some reason have remained primarily transactional instead of relationship focused, whether they're talking about their customers or even their employees. So what are some features or even symptoms of poor hiring practices, and how does that negatively impact the employee's perception of your business? And I wanted to isolate that so that people can recognize it, see it, and then understand what it means to their business.
So some of the features of a poor process would be lack of communication. People don't know where they stand in the process. They're not
Right.
aware at first contact, hey, what is this process trying to achieve? And
Right.
what's included in it? And when am
Yeah.
I going to hear back from you? Well, any of that sort of stuff. So that's a feature of a poor process. Another is and I know that sometimes the regulations differ from big companies and stuff, but if you're talking small business and your legalities allowance feedback in terms of a process. So, hey, you are not being hired because of X, Y, Z. And it's
Right.
factual. It's not a feeling.
Right.
It's not, hey, we don't like this person or we don't like that person. Because
Mhm.
up front, you know what you're looking for. You know what a good hire looks like by what you need to achieve and what they need to demonstrate in the hiring process. So you should very simply be able to feed back and say, hey, you didn't demonstrate X, Y, Z, as well as the people that we have moved through the process. And it
Right.
gives somebody something tangible to work on. And again,
Right.
makes you know that it's an equitable hiring process. You're being rejected because you didn't demonstrate something that's important for success in this particular role. And it
Right.
leaves the employee, the potential employee, leaving that process still feeling like a brand advocate because you've given them something back. They've invested their time in your process and you've said, hey, you didn't demonstrate this really well. And
Right.
here's some ways you maybe could have demonstrated that. So it gives them something tangible to work on, especially as we've seen a rise in the green banner community, that open to work community. And you can feel through LinkedIn some of the frustration that's happening in there. You are getting access to so many more people in a market that's difficult. You get a real chance to build some big brand fans in that part. And another feature is just mindless adding in of other stages of processes. Like, oh no, actually, we need you to meet this person and this person and this person. What for? Like, why? Why is this now part of the process? And another one that's a feature of a poor process for me is I believe in sort of a case study presentation to demonstrate your capability of doing a role, especially given the fact that CX involves lots of business case creation and delivering those presentations. So you get to see a live in-person version. However, if you're setting up an interview process that is really detailed, that's going to take people a week or so to put together a presentation about your problem and a business case specifically very much tailored for you, you're asking for free consultancy, not to assess competency to do a role. And that will invariably, again, take the people who are the top talent to say, no, I'm out.
Not free.
Yeah.
I'm not free. You're right. Yes.
Yeah, this is it. Or, you know, because it's very difficult to protect an idea or a characteristic. And I think it's prevalent in the industry where people will maybe meet with an outside consultant on a project and then think, oh, their ideas are good. I could probably do those myself. And that happens, right? But if you're taking advantage of people who have brought into your business and your brand already to be able to do that, that can make people go, I see what's happening here because I'm smart.
That I've seen that happen personally as well. I know of a particular scenario that fits, I believe, one of the criteria of features of poor hiring practices, where the person submitted outreach on LinkedIn. They got a response a couple of days later saying, we like what we see. The next stage will take you just 5 minutes, just fill out this survey. And 35 minutes later and 2 surveys in, there are 5 more surveys to do. And that person, like, and the timing on each survey was 35 minutes, 45 minutes. So what was initially a 5-minute survey was not a 5-minute survey, but more like they spent like 90 minutes doing what they thought was going to take 5 minutes while on their job. And then realized, you know what, this doesn't make sense. They now signing me up for another 2.5 hours, and I'm not willing to do that. What are your thoughts about that type of process?
Just be upfront and honest. Like, there are so many businesses, and I think this is the difficulty, right? There are businesses that are inherently desirable brands to work. They have shed loads of applications and a lot of interest, no matter how they go out to market. It's easy for a headhunter when one of those businesses come through, because you know, hey, let's get their interest in what they're doing first of all, particularly if it's one with a level of confidentiality. And then people get excited because it's a specific brand, you know, the likes of, you know, Amazon, for example. And I think the challenge with that is those brands have to bring in friction into their hiring process. And the friction is to reduce numbers up front. They have to do that, because otherwise the talent team just simply can't cope with the amount of applications to the business. There are very few people that have, or few businesses that have that brand power. And still, what you've got to think about is you're still going to, even with that friction, you're still going to probably alienate a group of people who go, hey, well, you know what, I'd be interested in working with them, but I value my time more than that. I'm employed in this great job at this moment in time. Like, I can't be bothered. So I think now more businesses, as they're smaller, or that they have an influx of applicants that's not normal because the market is pretty challenging, then they start to add those frictions into their hiring process purposefully, to naturally make people drop out of the process. But the question mark thing is, can you afford to do that? If your A player new hire is in that, can you afford to add in that friction? But also, the other side that I think of it, and it's the big thing that people don't like about us as a group, as recruiters, headhunters, they go, oh, they only want us when they need something. And I hear recruiters that moan about the same thing. They go, oh, I've been approaching this person to work with them. Now they're out of work. They want to work with me. But there is that relationship where, hey, I'm here and I'm there. But if we can give something back to employees, particularly those that are out of work, that are taking the time to fill in our applications, it gives, even if it's a nicely worded email back, or, you know, keep an eye out on our job boards here, you might find yourself interested in this, or this is a really good place for job hunters, wherever it might be, or we run this trade fair here. You are giving something back that's very little and takes very little of your time and energy. And if you do that to a wide group of people, you create fans of you and the brand invariably. Like, the majority of my business, or people that work with me, come from, you were previously a candidate, you helped and supported me, whether I placed them in their new role or not. Right. Because I have given them something, even if it's very small, because the yardstick is, there's not much to compare against. Not many people do it well. So even by doing something pretty basic in terms of, hey, this is a really good place for job seekers, or there's this group on LinkedIn, or this helped me when I was looking for work, whatever it might be, you're probably doing something that others aren't doing at the moment, or not many are.
Yeah, I appreciate that. My friend who was searching was after the third psychological or scientific assessment, with 3-4 more waiting, they were like, I don't know, I've never done this many psychological assessments before, or any type of assessment before, and so I don't know if it's worth the effort to go through, 3 hours, 3.5 hours of assessments, and I don't know if I'm even getting to the next stage yet. So,
but also with
so
those assessments, the big thing, we did a thing on it actually with, and I'm sorry to cut across you there, with my friend Danny in the UK. He's a business psychologist, and we did a piece on, hey, what are your psychological assessments? What are you using them for? And some organizations, it's difficult to know, hey, what are you using them for? Are you using them because your C-suite predominantly are showing a red profile, for example, in terms of some of the basic ones? So we know a red profile does well here, but then we're saying diversity of thought is really important to drive businesses forward. So are you trying to bring in a different style of profile to this role? And I think that's the difficulty with psychological assessments. You've got to know what you're using them for. And usually you can spot characteristics on people through thorough interviewing.
yes.
And so it will only tell you what you already know to a certain extent from the interview process. So it's an assessment to add weight to the hiring process, but it's really, is it something to knock somebody out on the process? Probably not. It's something to do with your, maybe your final stages. And before they go through to final stage, they do that assessment, and you talk about that assessment in the final stage interview. It's a point of context. It's a point of conversation. And does it ring true with what they're saying to what their profile says about them, for example? So it's that, again, is the difficulty with people like your friend that go through those assessments and they go, well, what are they assessing here? And I didn't get through on my last one. Maybe I should fib a little bit on this one. That's the thing. And the human brain, always, when we do anything of those psychological assessments, the first question we ask is, what's this question trying to prove?
Right. We try to figure out the assessment.
Yeah.
We at IAM, we have a strategic partnership with a behavioral science company that allows us to do very targeted assessments on people in leadership and people in business development roles. And it teases out the things or the psychological barriers that prevent them from performing optimally. So it can be used as a hiring filter, as in you've narrowed down 3 candidates, you have them go through this process to figure out which one might be the best suited based on those behavioral or psychological characteristics or challenges. It can be used for identifying training needs for your current employees. So I hear your point about how and why is an assessment being used? What is the point of it? And like you said, by creating friction at certain points of the hiring process, it becomes more of a deterrent and a filter outer, as some people like to say, as opposed to something that helps to fine tune your choice or your selection process.
But also, you'll probably see that when you use those assessments, that there can be a marked difference of how somebody is portrayed dependent on that individual circumstance at the time. I.e., I'm out of work. I've been out of work for 10 months. I do a psychological assessment. It might not be the same as when I've been employed with the same brand for 3 years, for example, and I'm in a stable job role and I'm going through your process, even though I'm comfortable in my current job because this one seems better. So psychological assessments change over time with where your psychological state is at the time. And I think that's really, and again, I'm no expert in that space, Roger, but it's something that I always like to have a chat with somebody about. And Danny, and you've got your behavioral scientist partnership there that you can go and have those conversations with, and they will know, hey, if we assess somebody at this stage, i.e. internally, they're employed with us, they get access to their own results. We're just using it as a, hey, what type of profiles do we have in our business? That's a very different to, hey, we're using this to assess you and to assess whether you're good enough for this role. And it might come out with very different results because of the 2 different psychological states.
Right. And so how it's presented is critical as well, as here's why we're doing this. I hear you on that. So let's move ahead then. So can you share some examples of how a positive early stage employee experience has directly impacted business outcomes?
Oh, 100%. So I was working with a pet food e-com business here in the UK, and they had gone out to market. They didn't find anybody. They came to me through recommendation, which is always appreciated. And
Mm-hmm.
we built up their process. The process was exactly the same because it was really good. We just
Mm-hmm.
explained it up front the minute that we targeted and outreached. They went into the process. And importantly, what we said about, hey, they're a pet food business, they're passionate about the health and well-being of pets, and that's the central point. And
Mm-hmm.
so invariably it attracted people who were pet lovers and had animals into the process, or who would want to have animals because they had a dog-friendly office.
Mm-hmm.
And out of the initial stage that we did with them, we had 4 people who interviewed with them at a first stage interview. 5, sorry. And out of those 5, 3 people had dogs, and 2 of them were with a long-term competitor, a big player in the food subscription, because it's a subscription model
Mm-hmm.
business. And they left that subscription and signed up with them because they had such a great experience, but
Mm-hmm.
also they'd gone through the interview process and when, yeah, these guys are putting their money where their mouth is. They really are a business that are passionate about pets, and actually they've got all of the stuff in there about the vets and stuff like that. Because I think people forget, as much as you're looking to learn from the candidates and people
Mm-hmm.
in your process, they are doing heavy research to come into it, researching your brand, where people fit. And if all of your marketing collateral and what you're saying is true with your people, i.e., your employee experience, and this is more long term, they're meeting your people internally, they're all saying the same message, they're driven by the same mission, they feel passionately about the business, then they highlight that to candidates within the mix. And
Yes.
therefore they go, well, even, because only one person gets the job, they go, yeah, but I'm signing up to this brand because they are awesome. And they actually do care about the health and well-being of my of my pets, and not just revenue generation. So
Yes.
there you go, new customers, and you look at your lifetime value of a subscription model, especially in something like pet care. And it's generally, if it's a good, solid product, it's the
Yes.
lifetime of your pet.
Mm-hmm. I love that example. So ladies and gentlemen, don't miss it. We can't ignore our employees. We can't not understand their needs. We can't not understand what it takes to empower them so they can meet the needs and solve problems for our customers. When we do that, there's some unseen but very powerful amplifiers to the business outcomes. It's definitely revenue, because a happy employee usually helps to create happy customers. But then you have the amplifier effect of referrals and people being customers of the very company they work for. That is the type of outcome you want when you intentionally address and manage employee experience, starting from the early stages. So then, what are some key components or pillars of a successful hiring strategy, and how does this impact an overall employee experience strategy?
So in terms of it, it's really basic and not very costly actually to deliver a great hiring process. That's the important thing, I think, to note, because
Mm,
it is about communicating with people that have applied to you and doing that intentionally. There will always be a group of people that don't fit at all, i.e., they just don't have the experience.
right.
And you can send people, it's you don't have the XYZ skill set, and you can probably set up some automations in terms of your
Mm,
emails for that. Again, some knockout questions that are very, very simple to put in, i.e., have you used this technology? Have you done this? Have you done that? And yes, no drop downs. And if it's
right.
no, 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 right, okay, you're kicked out of the process because you don't
Yeah.
have these 3 things. Um, your CV review again. You can set up some automations, click on them, write these on. If there's a group of people who actually broadly fit your job criteria, etc., you've maybe got some key requirements. This group have all of them. So you put in some nice little nice to haves, and you let people know, hey, we've had X amount of applicants. This many actually met the criteria for our role. We're pressing ahead with this group of people because they had X, Y, Z. Do you mind if we keep your details there? Send them a bit of information. Cool, done. Then you move forward for your interview, and you intentionally tell, and again, you can let those people know, this is our plan for first stage interview. If unsuccessful at that stage, we'll come back and revisit your application.
Right.
So they can be aware of that and know, hey, actually this has happened. And then you can email everyone when the job's closed. The next stage is obviously when you first speak to somebody. I always think you should have an initial telephone conversation, not just an interview straight away. You know, you've got people's contact details there. Have a quick call with them. Hey, this is what our process is going to look like. This is our salary and package that we're aiming to achieve. Have you done X, Y, Z? Yeah. Have those conversations, quick 15 minutes. And then you can speak to more people and then invite your pool to interview. What you get then is you've got people who are already engaged, and they come into interview knowing everything there is to know about your role, your process, how it's going to run, and they're happy and comfortable with that process. So then first stage interview, good amount of feedback. Second stage interviews, good amount of feedback, some sort of presentation, done. So all it is about, hey, it doesn't matter. To a certain extent, it doesn't matter how many people are involved in the process, as long as you know what you're looking to achieve, and the individual who is interviewing knows what you're looking to achieve through those customers. And what I mean by that is if you're a big business or a big brand, everybody knows who you are. I'll use Amazon again. Everyone knows Amazon. You can you know what you know about the business, you know broadly who they are. You can meet your hiring manager, maybe their boss, and a couple of members of your team, and you're comfortable with brand. You invariably stay within your area, very little interaction with everybody else, unless you're in a key CX role. Then you just have to deal with the fact that you're dealing with everybody. Then if you're a smaller business without the brand reputation and power of an Amazon, you may need to introduce more people, like your CEO, your founder, because those candidates are buying into the people because they don't know the brand. They know what you tell them about the brand, and they're buying into that trust element. So it's important for them to see they'll be interacting probably with the founder and the CEO on a day-to-day basis, because it's a smaller organization. I'm talking sub 100 employees. And if you're having those daily interactions, if you as a small business come up against an Amazon, you might lose by having the same amount of interviews and you've met the same amount of people, because I'm comfortable with Amazon. I know who they are. Whereas if everybody loves the people and it's the human experience again, you're more likely to beat out an Amazon to get your key hire to make the difference and drive your business forward. I think, what was the second part of that question? Was it how it impacts? Sorry, Roger.
Yeah, no problem. And how does this impact the overall employee experience strategy?
So I think overall, once you've had a great process, and that's end to end in terms of, and that was the other part actually at the back end, when you've got your offer, get the written confirmation and contract in their hands as quickly as possible, because you've got a nice shiny process. You've got someone who's excited and engaged. They have the slight nerves about handing in their notice, maybe. Everybody gets it, no matter what level they're at, especially if they really like their boss. So I think if you've got that quickly, the shine has not gone off the process. When you've got that in your hands and you're feeling excited, you're really engaged, you're less likely to be susceptible to a counteroffer. Psychologically, if you've been waiting over a week, the shine's kind of come off that process, and you're more susceptible to a counteroffer from the business. So how that impacts overall is you've had that great experience, you've got your offer, you confidently batted away a counter offer, and the data tells us anyone in CX is most likely to get a counter offer because it impacts client relationships and customer relationships. And that's the majority of why businesses do counter offers. You can then inform for our latest candidate experience survey, for example, Roger, sorry to put it back, but actually companies focus a lot on the onboarding, right? That's the bit where, and usually they do it from day one. Hey, day one onboarding. And what they forget is actually, I think it was something like 85% of respondents to our survey said they have never left a job role due to a poor onboarding experience, but over 90% said they have and would leave hiring processes due to a poor hiring process. So I think the thing is, if you've had a great candidate experience, they've done all of the things for your employee experience because you've met and known your team. In the UK, we have much longer notice periods, obviously, than you guys have in the States. So we introduce, so for anyone in the UK, you need to put in 3 points like call from your HR, welcome call from your hiring manager, you know, maybe a meeting out with the team and that sort of stuff to keep you engaged through your notice period. And I think that feeds into your employee experience, because in a way that your process has fed that individual all of the information that they need to know about you as a business, your brand values, your people values. And those mission orientated businesses with that laser focus attract the best talent. And if they have that through the hiring process, that tells people that they have that during the employee process. And that means things like how it can carry on is, hey, we're deploying AI within our contact center right now. And all of a sudden, everyone's out there reading from a contact center agent perspective, for example. But AI is going to take our jobs. What are they going to do here? And it's a panic station. And actually, if you say to people, hey, let's get your thoughts. We're thinking about putting AI into the operation. This is what are your thoughts on that? How do you feel about it? This is what we're using it for. This is how it'll impact you. This is why we are doing it, how we are doing it, and how it affects you. And I think, again, that comes from your candidate experience, feeds directly into your employee experience, and shows people that you care about them, you're engaged with them, and they feed back to you. And it makes people feel comfortable. They trust their organization. And I think that's the key part when we're saying communication and experience. The big thing is building a brand trust. And if you trust the business that you work for, it's very hard to leave them.
You're right. It's transparency. There's trust and transparency. And then there's emotional connection in confirmation of what you expect. So it happens the same way for customers. So it's great to hear you say the same thing. And I know our audience is like, wow, I didn't realize it was this deep when it came to our employees. I thought it was just hire them and they come to work because we pay them. You want it to be more than that. You want them to be excited about coming to work, so that, because the innovation happens in the ranks. It doesn't happen necessarily at C-suite level. It happens in the ranks. And unless people are passionate and emotionally engaged in their roles, they have no need to share beyond whatever the role requires. You know, some people work just enough not to get fired. You don't want that type of culture. You want a culture that's so engaged that they want to share, you know what, Mrs. Sudale, we have this idea that we think will help customers feel better about X, Y, and Z. That comes from the ranks most of the time. And so you create that environment by just starting the process off correctly so people can know what to expect. I really like that example. So then I think this question must follow up then. So what role does leadership play in shaping and maintaining that positive early stage employee experience?
Well, I think they need to make sure they're holding people in talent, people in hiring manager positions, no matter what level in terms of hiring manager, and partners to account for how they're delivering on those experiences, because you can have an incredible experience internally in terms of the ranks, but if your early experience doesn't show that, i.e. your hiring process, you're never going to bring on the best talent for them to see that, because people see things like, oh, they're adding an extra stage in an interview process. These people can't make decisions. How am I ever going to get anything done in customer experience with that attitude? And so I think leadership need to sort of communicate how important that overarching people strategy is and where it starts from the beginning, and making sure that if, for example, they have somebody inexperienced in talent, because, you know, everyone starts from somewhere, who are leading on a process for them, that they're holding their hand through the process, or they have a senior manager holding their hand through the process to make sure that they're holding themselves to account. But also when they're hiring, instead of battering away the I'm busy, like we're going to have to push back that interview, or I've not fed back on this because I'm busy, they need to say, hey, our people are the most important, and attracting those people and retaining those people go hand in hand with one another. And so what I'm going to do, instead of saying, hey, I'm busy to do this, is making sure that I'm very visibly carving out time when I'm hiring for my team, and showing the team that, hey, that's how we do things around here.
Right. Demonstrated transparency. Yes. Yes.
Exactly. And I think, and talking about it, because people can say, hey, employee experience is really important to us. If you have got a particular manager or senior manager, somebody in C-suite or senior leadership who runs a toxic environment, then that doesn't ring true, and people will always look at the C-suite and SLT team and go, hey, they don't do that. I don't need to do that. It's not that important to them.
Yeah. So how then can organizations measure success of this stage?
So there are a few ways that you can do it, in terms of, first of all, how long processes are taking, i.e. how long is it taking you to find somebody? Now, that can be difficult in terms of a niche role. But even so, even a niche role, there are, unless there's nobody out there, unless it's so niche nobody does it, in which case that's a whole other question mark altogether, is
That's the
how long are our processes taking? And if you have got a live role out in the market for 6 months, something is going very wrong. So I think in terms of time to hire, because again, niche role, even so, there'll be people out there, and how you go ahead and attract them will just be different. And if you can't attract them yourself, then use a partner who can with that niche network. The other is quality of hire. Very few people measure quality of hire. As an external recruitment party, it's really difficult to do. I always ask my customers, you know, what's this person saved you in operational efficiency? What have they managed to generate you in revenue? What have they done in terms of your NPS and CSAT score? And sometimes it can be very difficult to find that information. Internally, it's really easy. So what's the quality of your hire? And measuring and assessing the quality of hire is your impact on your business, the impact on the team. What are they doing in terms of do they have a low level of attrition within their function and team? And was it higher before they started? That's a good quality hire. They're saving money, and they're moving and pushing the agenda, the CX agenda forward, or whatever it might be, in terms of the organization. How do people? So I think the two most important metrics are time to hire, and I don't mean in terms of process, but how long's your role out there in the market for, and quality of hire. Yeah.
Okay.
Because
those are good.
I think that those two are the most important, and because you can manage happiness through a process in terms of what you're doing, but at the end of the day, what are you trying to do in that early part of the recruitment process, or the important part of the employee experience, i.e. the candidate experience? You're trying to hire the best person push your business agenda forward. And if you
Right.
get through a process of the person who, hey, they can do X, Y, Z for our business, remap our customer journeys, fix this issue, fix that issue. What does it mean to us as a business? What does it mean to our customers? And what does it mean to our employees? And that quality of hire is often the thing that's missed. They go, hey, we hired someone. Were they any good? Did they stay? Did people like them? And I think that's the difficulty, and it's the thing that I come up against the most when people go, oh, we've hired this role every year for the past 3 years, and you go, what on earth is going wrong here? And usually you can pinpoint it to an employee experience.
Yeah.
Wrong
I read a stat somewhere, I can't remember who it was that said it, but it says that the cost of filling a role, filling a vacancy can run anywhere from 25 to 40% of the salary of the vacant role. And that includes the ramp up time for them getting to know what they're supposed to do, that kind of thing. And
up to 200%, Roger, for a top performer as well. So if you lose one of your top performers in yours, it can cost you up to 200%. Average employee, you're talking 25, 40, but one of your top performers, you're talking 200%, and that's a lot of cash.
That's a lot of cash. So to go back to your example of a revolving door where you're hiring for the same role over and over, how many times do we want to lose 20 to 40 or 200%? In light of the fact that it's a competitive marketplace and keeping talent is already so difficult. A business can't afford that. And that's why I think measuring not just time to hire, but quality of hire, so important, because now you can use evidence-based decision-making to decide, you know what, this profile of person actually offers us the best impact, both in a team dynamic and in a business outcome dynamic. And this is the kind of person we want to fill it with. And so maybe it might take us a month longer to find the right person, but when we find the right person, we know what we can get out of that and how we should be treating them if we're tracking all of these things that Kerry is teaching us. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a clinic here. You're back in university. Yes, this is Kerry Sedale, and you need to be taking copious notes, okay? So I just have a couple more questions, maybe one, no more than two. So technology, everybody has a question about technology. How does technology play a role in shaping this part of the process, the early stage employee experience or employee experience in general?
So technology is great, right? Because we can send on mass messages to people that we weren't able to do before. We can keep candidate details on file as long as we have shared all of that information with candidates up front about what we do with their data, etc. And we can comb past applicants that might not have the right fit to engage with. But there's also really simple bits and pieces like, hey, you're coming to interview with us. Send them a video. Hey, you're coming to interview with us. This is what you can expect from our business. Like anybody within the hiring process or the hiring manager, what does it take to be successful in this role? Send them a video. It's easier to be engaged with a person. You're looking at them, whether it's video or not, and then candidate ghosting stops because you've got buy-in to them. They've taken the time and effort. It's not that much time and effort because you make one video and you send it to everybody. So technology, exactly. But it's a point of difference that other people aren't doing. You can use it to send it out to people when you're headhunting as well, in terms of hey, let me tell you about this role. And you know, everyone says we don't want massive long LinkedIn messages, or people go, hey, someone thinks this role is interesting for me. Haha, it's 20 grand less than my current package or whatever it is. Send them a video. Send them a little bit of text, but also send them a video saying, hey, learn more about us here. Have it posted on your LinkedIn so it's a link so they can choose to go to it or they can't. And they can go, oh, actually, this sounds interesting. But more than that, I like the person that's telling me about this role or how they are speaking about the role. They sound
Yeah.
passionate about the role. It sounds really interesting. So hitting that up with here's the link to the job advert, here's a link to what we're telling you about it. Candidates feel that they get more information up front and they can assess, is this worth my time?
Right.
So
you were one of the first people that I ever saw do that as a headhunter / recruiter. I remember just before I reached out to you about doing this podcast, the last thing I saw then was you sharing just that, a very brief video on an opportunity you're hiring for and what it looks like. And if there's anyone you know of that's a great fit for this, reach out to me, or they can reach out to this link, just like you said. And I thought that was unique. I thought if I were looking for work in the UK, I'd probably be calling you right now, flying my way over to it's Birmingham, right?
yeah, just outside of Birmingham.
Right. Get my Aston Villa shirt ready and everything, so but yeah, I really like that. And I think it, like you said, it's about differentiating. So if we can differentiate at the initial stage as a brand, or even differentiating at the early stage as a recruiter / headhunter, that's a powerful differentiator right there, because there's connection, there's emotional connection all of a sudden.
Definitely.
That didn't exist. Yeah.
Especially as the hiring processes, and especially as you climb up the ranks, the feedback from my customers in terms of the exec, chief customer officers, customer experience directors, is that sometimes there's a feeling that it's a very much us and them with headhunters, that they control the opportunity, and whether you can go forward to that particular business is in our control. And I think that opening up that dialogue and having those conversations is much better to do, because again, you're talking with really talented people, but they also hire, they understand the differentiators. If you say, hey, do you know what, Roger, you're absolutely great, but this customer is actually looking for XYZ that you don't have. Go, oh yeah, okay, cool. Like opening up those levels of dialogue, reaching out to more people and being confident enough to say to those people, even if the wrong people reach out to you, like they don't have the exact skill set, just be confident in why they don't have the exact skill set. It's nothing personal. It's just business.
Correct. Yeah. And there's a way to communicate that as well.
Yeah, definitely.
One of the just to wrap up, one of the things we also have is a voice of customer technology that has voice of employee capabilities. And so that will be really useful beyond that early stage of attraction and recruitment, to capture feedback and understand how the employee's journey is actually going, so that the company can then refine those and empower the employee appropriately so they can solve problems for customers and give us the business outcomes that we want. But I really appreciate your level of granularity in helping us understand just how significant the ripple effect is of the early stage of the process of employee experience. Because I'm pretty certain, I know many organizations in the Caribbean probably have never even thought about this at this depth, but I know many organizations globally have not thought about this at this depth. And I think after hearing you today, they will start doing so. So Kerry, Sudale, thank you so much. Sudale Search is doing amazing work. I look forward to seeing everywhere, hearing you everywhere. I'm sure you're going to get a lot of fans as a result of this. So thank you for taking your premium time to spend with us. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for attending the IAM CX podcast. I am Roger Nicholas, Customer Experience Director at IAM CX, and we thank you. We're happy to have you, and we look forward to you joining us again. Have a great day and go win.